Cats and kittens, it's Doc Hammond, and I have a story for you. You know, it's springtime now. It's just about the time when all the snow is gone and the pools and streams are starting to fill up with water and with new life. And in fact, some of you may already have heard some of the spring peeper frogs singing, sounding like bells out over the swamps and the wet spots. Or maybe you've been out in the woods and you've heard the wood frogs sort of croaking like ducks. Well, I thought I'd tell you a story today about another kind of frog and what happens with wide-mouthed frog when she has a new batch of babies. You see, wide-mouthed frog, well, she was kind of silly and she was kind of loud, and she didn't really use her good sense when she first had her babies. She wanted to find out what she should feed them, and instead of going to her mom or her grandmother, reliable sources for that information, she decided she was going to go out on her own, out in the farmyard near where she lived, and ask all the animals she came across just what was going on. And she was so excited about that as she hopped out across the farmyard, she sang a little song. She sang, "I'm a wide-mouthed frog. I'm a wide-mouthed frog. Oh, how great it is to be a wide-mouthed frog." Well, she hopped on across the barnyard until she came to the first animal. And that animal happened to be a chicken. And the chicken was there in the barnyard, scratching away. Well, Wide-Mouthed Frog hopped up to Mrs. Chicken and she said, "Hi there, chicken. I'm Wide-Mouthed Frog. What do you feed your babies?" And Mrs. Chicken looked at her and said, "I feed my babies chicken feed and table scraps." Well, Wide-Mouthed Frog just looked at Mrs. Chicken and she said, "Oh no, that will never do." And she hopped on her way. While the next animal she came to was Mrs. Dog. And she hopped up to Mrs. Dog and she said, "Hi there, dog. I'm Wide-Mouthed Frog. What do you feed your babies?" And Mrs. Dog looked up and said, I feed my babies bones and gravy." Wide-Mouthed Frog said, "Oh no, that will never do." She was a little bit rude, you see. But anyway, she hopped on her way and she came upon the next animal. And the next animal happened to be Mrs. Cat. And she said, "Hi there, Cat. I'm Wide-Mouthed Frog. What do you feed your babies?" And Mrs. Cat said, "I ham." Oh, wait a minute. That's a different story. Well, never mind. Wide-Mouthed Frog hopped on her way. And she came upon another animal, and this time it was Mrs. Horse. And she hopped right up to Mrs. Horse, and she said, "Hi there, Horse. I'm Wide-Mouthed Frog. What do you feed your babies?" And Mrs. Horse said, I feed my babies oats and hay and fresh green grass. Really tasty." And Wide-Mouthed Frog said, "Oh no, that will never do." So she continued to hop on her way, and the next animal she came up to was Mrs. Pig. And she hopped up to Mrs. Pig and she said, "Hi there, Pig. I'm Wide-Mouthed Frog. What do you feed your babies?" By now you've probably figured out where Wide-Mouthed Frog got her name. Well, Mrs. Pig looked at her and she said, I feed my babies garbage. Oh, juicy, stinking, oozing, rotting garbage. Well, Wide-Mouthed Frog, understandably this time, said, "Oh no, that will never do." And she continued hopping across the farmyard. Well, the next animal she came to was Mrs. Goat. And Mrs. Goat was just standing around nibbling on something. Wide-mouthed Frog couldn't tell what it was at first. So she hopped right up to Mrs. Goat and she said, "Hi there, Goat. I'm Wide-mouthed Frog. What do you feed your babies?" And Mrs. Goat said, "Meh, meh. I feed my babies tin cans and scrap metal. Oh, did you ever try any? It's a real delicacy." Wide-mouthed Frog just stared at Mrs. Goat and she said, "Oh no, that will never do." Well, she was almost to the far edge of the farmyard now, and she hopped along until she came to another animal, a smaller animal this time, a lizard. And she hopped up to the lizard and she said, "Hi there, lizard. I'm Wide-mouthed Frog. What do you feed your babies?" And the lizard stuck his tongue out and then said, "I feed my babies little bugs and spiders and sometimes juicy, crunchy worms." Wide-mouthed Frog said, "Oh no, that will never do." Even though if she was a little smarter, she might have realized that some of those things are actually what frogs would feed their babies. But she wasn't that smart, so she continued on her way, and now she was hopping along singing her song once again. "I'm a wide-mouthed frog. I'm a wide-mouthed frog. Oh, how great it is to be a wide-mouthed frog." And by this time she'd come over to the edge of the barnyard, and strangely enough, there happened to be a zoo right nearby. And standing along the edge of the fence at the zoo was a very, very tall animal. It was a giraffe. And so Wide-mouthed Frog hopped up to her and said, "Hi there, Giraffe. I'm Wide-mouthed Frog. What do you feed your babies?" And Mrs. Giraffe, who was actually a very gentle soul, chewed a little bit. And she said, "I feed my babies the tender green leaves from the tippy tops of the trees. Would you like me to try to reach some for you too?" Well, rather rudely, Wide-mouthed Frog responded, "Oh no, that will never do." And she continued to hop along the wall of the zoo till she came to another animal. And this time it was an anteater. And she said, "Hi there, anteater. I'm Wide-mouthed Frog. What do you feed your babies?" And the anteater said, "Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I used to know the answer to this one. Wait, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Let me look at this." And she pulled out her tongue and looked, and she said, "Oh, yeah, ants. I feed my babies ants. I'm an anteater." And Wide-mouthed Frog said, "Oh, no, that will never do." Well, by this time, she'd hopped all the way down the side of the fence of the zoo, and she'd come to the edge of the river. And in the river, she saw something floating that looked a lot like a log, except it had two eyes near the top of one end of it. And she said, "Oh, I think I know what that is." And so she hopped up to the edge of the river, got really close, and that log-like creature drifted closer and closer to her. And she said, "Hi there, alligator. Or are you a crocodile? Or are you a crocolator or an alligadile? Well, whatever you are, I'm Wide-mouthed Frog. And I came to ask you, what do you feed your babies?" And the alligator slowly opened her long, tooth-lined mouth, and she let it clack shut a couple of times. She said, "I feed my babies wide-mouthed frogs." And Wide-mouthed Frog stopped for just a second And then she said, "You do? Well, I don't think I've seen any wide-mouthed frogs around here for quite some time." And then she sprang away from the river as fast as she could go, and the alligator's jaws clapped shut right behind her. And Wide-Mouthed Frog hopped on back to her home. And then she realized how silly she'd been, and she decided that she'd better ask that question of her own mom, somebody who would really know what she was talking about. And maybe that's good advice for all of us.